There is a transformation happening in our world, a shift so profound and yet so subtle that most people miss it entirely. It is the evolution of leadership itself. The old models are crumbling like ancient monuments that can no longer withstand the forces of change. The command and control structures that built empires are now building nothing but resistance, resentment, and rebellion. The leaders who will thrive in this century are not those who shout the loudest or demand the most respect, but those who understand that true leadership is service, that real power comes from empowering others, and that the greatest victories are achieved not through force, but through connection, not through domination, but through collaboration, not through fear, but through inspiration. You have the capacity to become such a leader. You possess within you right now every quality needed to lead in this new world. But first, you must understand what these qualities are, how to develop them, and more importantly, how to live them every single day. The journey of leadership is not a destination you reach, but a path you walk, not a trophy you win, but a responsibility you carry, not a position you hold, but a service you provide. Every day you have the opportunity to choose leadership, to choose growth, to choose to become more than you were yesterday.
The first quality that sets apart the true 21st century leader is adaptability, but not the kind of adaptability that bends to every wind like a weak reed. This is intelligent adaptability, the ability to remain flexible while staying true to your core values, to change your methods while never changing your principles, to evolve your approach while maintaining your integrity. The world is changing at a pace never before seen in human history. Technology that seemed like science fiction 5 years ago is now commonplace in every pocket. Industries that dominated for decades disappear overnight, replaced by innovations that did not even exist when those industries were at their peak. Entire professions are being transformed by artificial intelligence, automation, and global connectivity. The leaders who survive and thrive are those who learn continuously, who see change not as a threat to be resisted, but as an opportunity to be embraced. They understand that their knowledge has an expiration date, and they constantly refresh it, update it, expand it. They are like gardeners who know that a garden requires constant attention, constant nurturing, constant adaptation to the changing seasons. They embrace new tools not because they are new, but because they are useful. They learn new methods not because they are trendy, but because they are effective. They adopt new ways of thinking not because they are popular, but because they are better. But they never lose sight of what makes them human. They adapt their methods, but never their integrity. They learn new languages of communication, but never forget how to speak from the heart. They master new technologies, but never become slaves to them.
This adaptability extends far beyond technology. It includes the ability to work across cultures, to understand that the world has become a global village where your next great idea might come from someone halfway around the planet who sees things completely differently than you do, who has experiences you have never had, who brings perspectives you have never considered. The truly successful leader of today builds bridges between cultures, between generations, between different ways of thinking. They see diversity not as a challenge to manage or a problem to solve, but as a strength to harness, a resource to tap, a competitive advantage to leverage. They understand that when people from different backgrounds come together, when different perspectives collide and combine, when different experiences merge and meld, that is when innovation happens. That is when breakthrough solutions emerge. That is when impossible becomes possible. They create environments where different voices are not just heard but valued, where different approaches are not just tolerated but celebrated, where different ideas are not just acknowledged but actively sought. They know that the echo chamber produces nothing but echoes, but diversity produces discoveries.
Hubbard, adaptability is more than just being open to change. It is about being proactive about change, anticipating it, preparing for it, even initiating it when necessary. The adaptive leader does not wait for change to happen to them. They study trends. They watch patterns. They listen to weak signals that others, they position themselves and their organizations not just to respond to change, but to lead it, to shape it, to benefit from it. They understand that in a world of constant change, standing still is moving backward, that maintaining the status quo is actually falling behind, that what got you here will not get you there. They are always asking themselves, what is changing? What should be changing? What do I need to change? How can I change it? When should I change it? Who can help me change it? They make change their friend, their ally, their competitive advantage. The adaptive leader also understands that change is hard for people. They recognize that most people resist change, not because they are stubborn or lazy, but because change is scary, uncertain, risky. People fear losing what they have, what they know, what they are comfortable with. The wise leader helps people navigate change by providing clarity about why change is necessary, vision about where change is leading, support during the process of change, and celebration when change succeeds. They understand that their role is not just to mandate change, but to facilitate it, not just to announce it, but to guide it, not just to require it, but to inspire it. They become change agents who help others see change as opportunity rather than threat, as growth rather than loss, as adventure rather than ordeal. But adaptability alone is not enough. The second quality that defines exceptional leadership today is emotional intelligence. And this goes far deeper than simply being nice to people or having good social skills. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand not just your own emotions, but the emotions of others. To recognize not just what people are saying, but what they are feeling. To see not just what is happening on the surface, but what is happening underneath. It is the capacity to create emotional safety in your workplace, in your community, in your relationships, in every environment where you have influence. People today are more stressed, more anxious, more overwhelmed than perhaps any generation before them. They are bombarded with information from morning until night. They are pressured by constant connectivity that never allows them to truly disconnect, to truly rest, to truly be present. They are struggling to find meaning in a world that often seems chaotic, divided, uncertain. They are dealing with challenges their parents never faced, using technologies their grandparents could never have imagined, working in ways that did not exist just a few years ago. The leader who can create calm in this storm, who can help people feel secure and valued and understood. This leader will build loyalty that transcends any salary, any title, any external reward.
Emotional intelligence means knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait, when to be firm and when to be flexible, when to push and when to support, when to challenge and when to comfort. It means recognizing that behind every difficult behavior is often a person who is struggling with something, that beneath every angry outburst is usually hurt or fear, that underneath every withdrawal is often confusion or overwhelm. It means leading with empathy without losing your effectiveness, making decisions based not just on numbers and data, but on the human impact of those decisions, understanding that every policy affects real people with real lives and real dreams and real fears. The emotionally intelligent leader understands that every interaction leaves an impression. Every conversation has the power to inspire or discourage. Every decision affects not just outcomes, but relationships, not just results, but trust, not just performance, but morale. They take this responsibility seriously. They choose their words carefully, not because they are afraid of offending, but because they understand the power of words to build up or tear down, to encourage or discourage, to connect or divide. They invest time in understanding the people they lead, not as resources to be utilized or problems to be solved, but as human beings to be developed, as individuals with unique gifts and challenges and aspirations. They remember that people are not machines that can be programmed and controlled, but complex beings with emotions and motivations and needs that go far beyond the workplace. They understand that when people feel understood and valued as individuals, they perform better as team members. When people feel emotionally safe, they take creative risks. When people trust their leader, they give their best effort. When people believe their leader cares about them as people, they will go above and beyond what is required. At this, emotional intelligence also includes deep self-awareness, the ability to recognize your own triggers, your own biases, your own limitations, your own emotional patterns. The great leaders of this century are not those who pretend to have all the answers or who try to appear invulnerable, but those who are honest about what they do not know and humble enough to surround themselves with people who complement their weaknesses, who fill their gaps, who strengthen their blind spots. They understand that vulnerability is not a flaw to hide, but a strength to leverage, not a weakness to overcome, but a doorway to connection. When a leader admits they do not know something, when they ask for help, when they show that they too are learning and growing and sometimes struggling, they give permission to everyone around them to do the same. They create a culture where it is safe to make mistakes, safe to experiment, safe to fail forward, safe to be human. They model the behavior they want to see, demonstrating that growth requires vulnerability, that learning requires admitting ignorance, that improvement requires acknowledging imperfection. The emotionally intelligent leader also understands the emotional climate of their organization and takes responsibility for shaping it. They know that emotions are contagious, that morale spreads, that attitude affects performance. They monitor the emotional health of their team like a doctor monitors vital signs, looking for signs of stress, burnout, disengagement, conflict. They intervene early when problems arise, not waiting for crises to develop, but addressing issues while they are still manageable. They celebrate successes enthusiastically, acknowledge struggles compassionately, and create rituals and traditions that build emotional connection and shared identity. And this brings us to the third, the quality essential for modern leadership. The courage to be authentic in a world that often rewards pretense, that encourages image management over genuine character, that prizes perception over reality. Authenticity in leadership does not mean sharing every personal detail or emotion or thought that crosses your mind. It does not mean being unprofessional or inappropriate or self-indulgent. It means being consistent between your private values and your public actions, between what you say and what you do, between who you are in public and who you are in private. It means saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It means admitting when you are wrong and taking responsibility for your mistakes. It means being the same person whether anyone is watching or not, whether it benefits you or not, whether it is convenient or not. In an age where information travels instantly and social media exposes every inconsistency, leaders who try to maintain a false image inevitably fail. The truth always comes out. People always see through pretense eventually. The mask always slips. But more than that, people can sense authenticity like they can sense a storm coming. They can feel when someone is being genuine and when they are performing, when someone is being real and when they are being political, when someone is speaking from the heart and when they are reading from a script. The authentic leader attracts authentic followers. They build trust not through perfect performance, but through honest effort, not through flawless execution, but through transparent intention, not through impressive credentials, but through consistent character.
The authentic leader shares their struggles, as well as their successes, their questions, as well as their answers, their journey, as well as their destination. They understand that people do not expect perfection from their leaders, but they do expect consistency, integrity, and genuine care. They expect leaders to be human, to make mistakes, to learn and grow. But they also expect leaders to own their mistakes, to learn from them, to grow because of them. The authentic leader does not try to be someone they are not. They do not pretend to have skills they lack or knowledge they do not possess. Instead, they work to become the best version of themselves, to develop their natural strengths, to address their genuine weaknesses, to grow in areas that matter. Authenticity also means aligning your actions with your stated values, making decisions based on principles rather than just convenience or profit or popular opinion. It means doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. It means keeping promises even when it is difficult, telling the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, standing up for what you believe, even when it is unpopular. The authentic leader understands that integrity is like a foundation. You cannot see it, but everything else depends on it. Without integrity, nothing else matters. With integrity, everything else is possible. But authenticity is not just about personal integrity. It is also about creating an environment where others can be authentic too, where people do not have to pretend to be someone they are not to succeed, where diversity of thought and style and approach is not just tolerated, but encouraged. The authentic leader creates psychological safety where people can bring their whole selves to work, where they can admit mistakes without fear of punishment, where they can share ideas without fear of ridicule, where they can be vulnerable without fear of exploitation. The fourth quality that separates great leaders from good ones is their relationship with learning, but this goes far beyond formal education or professional development, or keeping up with industry trends. The 21st century leader is, above all, a student of life, a lifelong learner, who understands that their education never ends, that expertise in one area does not make them an expert in all areas, that the world is changing so rapidly that yesterday's solutions may not work for today's problems, and today's solutions may not work for tomorrow's challenges. They approach each day with curiosity, each challenge with openness, each failure with the question, what can I learn from this? But this learning goes beyond formal education or professional development. The true leader learns from everyone they meet, from every experience they have, from every failure they encounter, from every success they achieve. They ask questions not because they want to appear engaged. They listen not to respond, but to learn, not to judge, but to understand, not to prepare their rebuttal, but to genuinely hear what others are saying. They read voraciously, not to accumulate knowledge for its own sake or to impress others with their erudition, but to understand the world better so they can serve it better, to see patterns they might otherwise miss, to gain perspectives they might not otherwise have. They study the past to understand the present and the present and the present and prepare for the future. They learn from history not to repeat it, but to learn from it, to see what worked and what did not work, what endured and what failed, what principles remain constant, and what methods must evolve. They study other leaders, not to copy them, but to understand them, to see what made them effective, what caused them to fail, what lessons their experiences can teach. They analyze their own experiences regularly, reflecting on what went well and what could have gone better, what they would do differently, and what they would do the same way, what they learned, and how they can apply those lessons going forward. This commitment to learning extends to learning about themselves, about their own patterns and preferences and tendencies and blind spots. The greatest leaders are those who never stop working on their own development, who regularly examine their own behavior, their own assumptions, their own effectiveness, their own impact on others. They seek feedback actively, not because it feels good, but because it helps them grow. Not because they enjoy criticism, but because they value improvement more than comfort. They surround themselves with people who will tell them the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it challenges their assumptions, even when it requires them to change. They invest in coaches, mentors, advisors who can help them see their blind spots and develop their potential, who can challenge them to grow beyond their current limitations.
A learning leader also creates a learning organization, an environment where everyone is encouraged to learn and grow and develop. They model curiosity and intellectual humility. They ask questions and encourage others to ask questions. They admit when they do not know something and encourage others to do the same. They share what they learn and encourage others to share what they learn. They create systems and processes that capture learning and spread it throughout the organization. They celebrate learning as much as they celebrate results, understanding that learning leads to better results, that growth leads to better performance, that development leads to better outcomes. But learning is not just about acquiring information. It is also about developing wisdom, about understanding how to apply knowledge effectively, about knowing not just what to do, but when to do it and how to do it. The wise leader learns not just facts, but principles, not just techniques, but timing, not just methods, but meaning. They understand that information without application is worthless, that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, that learning without action is pointless. Feedback quality is perhaps the most challenging in our hyper-connected, constantly distracted world. The ability to focus deeply while maintaining broad awareness, to concentrate intensely on what matters most, while remaining alert to changes and opportunities and threats in the environment. Today's leaders face more distractions than any leaders in history. They are bombarded with emails and messages and notifications and requests and demands on their attention from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to sleep. They have access to more information than they could possibly process, more opportunities than they could possibly pursue, more options than they could possibly explore. In this environment, the ability to focus becomes a competitive advantage, a survival skill, a leadership imperative. This requires disciplined attention management, the understanding that attention is not unlimited, that focus is not automatic, that concentration requires intention and effort and practice. It means creating systems and habits that protect their mental energy for what matters most, that filter out the noise and focus on the signal, that distinguish between what is urgent and what is important,
between what demands attention and what deserves attention. It means saying no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones, declining invitations that do not align with their priorities, avoiding commitments that do not contribute to their goals.
The focused leader does not try to do everything or be everything to everyone. They identify what they can do that no one else can do, what unique value they bring, what distinctive contribution they can make, and they focus their energy there. They delegate not because they want to avoid work, but because they want to multiply their impact, not because they cannot do something, but because their time and energy are better spent elsewhere. They understand that trying to do everything results in doing nothing well, that being good at everything means being great at nothing, that spreading yourself thin is a recipe for mediocrity. But this focus is balanced with awareness, with peripheral vision, with the ability to see the bigger picture while attending to details, to maintain context while managing content. The truly effective leader maintains awareness of trends, of changes, of opportunities that might not be immediately relevant but could become important, that might not affect them today but could impact them tomorrow. They build networks not for networking's sake, but to stay informed and connected to the broader world, to maintain access to different perspectives and insights and information. They read broadly while focusing narrowly. They listen widely while acting specifically. They think globally while operating locally. The focused leader also understands the importance of mental clarity and cognitive performance. They take care of their physical health because they know it affects their mental performance. They get enough sleep because they know fatigue impairs judgment. They exercise regularly because they know physical fitness enhances mental fitness. They manage stress because they know stress reduces effectiveness. They take breaks because they know rest improves performance. They understand that their mind is their most important tool, and they maintain it like a craftsman maintains their most valuable instrument.
Focus also means being present, being fully engaged in whatever they are doing, whoever they are with, whatever situation they are in. It means not checking their phone during conversations, not thinking about the next meeting during the current meeting, not being physically present, but mentally absent. The focused leader gives their full attention to the person they are with, the task they are performing, the decision they are making. They understand that presence is a gift they give to others and a skill that serves them well. The sixth quality essential for modern leadership is the ability to build and maintain trust. In an age of skepticism, cynicism, and broken promises, trust is the foundation of all leadership, the currency of all relationships, the basis of all influence. Without trust, leadership becomes management at best and manipulation at worst. With trust, even difficult situations become manageable. Even challenging relationships become workable. Even complex problems become solvable. But earning trust today is more challenging than ever before. People have been disappointed too often, promised too much, delivered too little. They have seen leaders say one thing and do another, claim one set of values and demonstrate another, make commitments they had no intention of keeping. They are naturally suspicious of leaders, naturally resistant to authority, naturally skeptical of promises and claims and assurances. The trust-building leader understands that trust is not given automatically because of position or title or authority. It is earned through consistent action over time, through keeping small promises as well as big ones, through doing what you say you will do when you say you will do it, regardless of whether anyone is watching or checking or holding you accountable. They make commitments carefully and keep them religiously. They think before they speak, consider before they commit, reflect before they promise. They understand that their word is their bond, that their credibility is their capital, that their reputation is their most valuable asset. They communicate clearly and frequently, understanding that silence breeds suspicion, that lack of information creates rumors, that absence of communication allows misunderstanding to flourish. They over-communicate rather than under-communicate. They err on the side of too much information rather than too little. They keep people informed, not just about successes, but about challenges, not just about progress, but about setbacks, not just about what is going well, but about what is going poorly and what they are doing about it. They follow through on promises without being reminded, without being asked, without being pressured. They do what they say they will do because they said they would do it, not because someone is forcing them to do it. They keep track of their commitments and honor them religiously. When they cannot keep a promise, they communicate early and honestly about why, what they are doing about it. When they can deliver instead, they never make excuses or blame others or try to avoid responsibility.
They give credit generously and accept blame readily. When things go well, they highlight the contributions of others. When things go poorly, they take responsibility as the leader. They do not throw their team under the bus or point fingers or deflect responsibility. They understand that as the leader, they are ultimately accountable for results, regardless of what anyone else did or did not do. They protect their team from criticism and share credit for success. Trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. The wise leader protects trust like the precious resource it is. They understand that every decision, every communication, every action either builds trust or erodes it. There is no neutral ground. They choose building trust every time, even when it is difficult, even when it is costly, even when it would be easier to take shortcuts, even when no one would know the difference. They choose integrity over convenience, honesty over political correctness, transparency over image management. The trust-building leader also extends trust to others, understanding that trust is reciprocal, that people tend to rise to the level of trust placed in them, that giving trust often generates trust in return. They delegate authority along with responsibility. They give people freedom to make decisions and room to make mistakes. They treat people as trustworthy until proven otherwise, rather than as untrustworthy until proven otherwise. They create an environment where people feel trusted and therefore act in trustworthy ways.
But trust is not naivety. A wise leader verifies as well as trust. They create systems and processes that make it easy for people to do the right thing and difficult for them to do the wrong thing. They monitor results without micromanaging processes. They hold people accountable for outcomes while giving them freedom to determine. They trust people's intentions while verifying their performance. The seventh quality is resilience, but not the kind of resilience that simply endures hardship or survives difficulties. This is adaptive resilience, the ability to not just survive challenges, but to grow stronger through them, to emerge from difficulties better than you entered them, to transform obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into comebacks. The 21st century leader faces unprecedented challenges: global competition that never sleeps, technological disruption that happens at lightning speed, social upheaval that changes the rules constantly, environmental pressures that threaten sustainability, economic uncertainty that makes planning difficult, political instability that affects business conditions, cultural shifts that change customer expectations. The leader who thrives in this environment is not the one who avoids challenges or hides from difficulties, but the one who faces them head-on, problems into possibilities, threats into advantages. Resilient leaders understand that failure is not the opposite of success, but a stepping stone to it. That setbacks are not endings, but beginnings. That obstacles are not barriers, but building blocks. They reframe setbacks as learning opportunities, seeing each failure as feedback about what does not work, and therefore guidance about what might work better. They view criticism as information rather than attack, seeing negative feedback as data they can use to improve rather than insults they need to defend against. They see obstacles as puzzles to solve rather than barriers to progress, as challenges that will make them stronger rather than problems that will defeat them. But resilience is not about being tough all the time or never showing emotion or pretending that difficulties do not affect you. True resilience includes the wisdom to know when to persist and when to pivot, when to push harder and when to step back and regroup, when to stay the course and when to change direction. The resilient leader knows when to be flexible and when to be firm, when to compromise and when to stand firm, when to adapt and when to maintain course. The resilient leader takes care of their own well-being so they can take care of others. They understand that leadership is a marathon, not a sprint, and they pace themselves accordingly. They maintain their physical health through regular exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep. They maintain their mental health through stress management, relaxation, and recreation. They maintain their emotional health through relationships, hobbies, and activities that bring them joy. They maintain their spiritual health through practices that connect them to something larger than themselves, whether that is religion, meditation, nature, or service to others.
Resilience also means building support systems. And that we aligning yourself with people who can provide encouragement when you are discouraged, advice when you are confused, perspective when you are overwhelmed, accountability when you are tempted to give up. The resilient leader does not try to go it alone or pretend they do not need help. They build relationships before they need them, invest in connections before crises arise, create networks of support that they can draw on when times get tough. The resilient leader also builds resilience in their organization and their team. They create cultures that can adapt to change, systems that can handle stress, processes that can function under pressure. They develop people who can think for themselves, solve problems independently, and maintain performance even when conditions are difficult. They build redundancy into critical systems, cross-train people in essential skills, and create backup plans for important processes. But perhaps most importantly, resilient leaders maintain hope and optimism, even in difficult times. They do not ignore reality or pretend that problems do not exist, but they focus on solutions rather than problems, possibilities rather than limitations, opportunities rather than obstacles. They communicate confidence even when they feel uncertain, project strength even when they feel weak, inspire hope even when they feel discouraged. They understand that their emotional state affects everyone around them, that their attitude is contagious, that their resilience strengthens others.
The eighth quality is perhaps the most important for our interconnected world: the ability to collaborate across boundaries of all kinds. And it's the organizational boundaries, cultural boundaries, generational boundaries, ideological boundaries, geographical boundaries, professional boundaries. The challenges facing our world today are too complex for any individual or organization to solve alone. Climate change, poverty, disease, inequality, technological displacement, cybersecurity threats, global competition. Minus these issues require collaboration on a scale never before attempted, cooperation between groups that have never worked together before, partnerships between organizations that might normally be competitors. The collaborative leader builds partnerships not because it is politically correct or fashionable, but because it is practically necessary, because the problems they are trying to solve are bigger than any one person or organization can handle. They understand that their success is interconnected with the success of others, that in an interconnected world, we sink or swim together, that isolation is not just impractical but impossible. They think in terms of networks rather than hierarchies, ecosystems rather than organizations, partnerships rather than transactions, relationships rather than deals. Collaboration requires a special kind of humility, the recognition that others may have pieces of the solution that you do not have, that different perspectives can lead to better solutions, that the wisdom of the group often exceeds the wisdom of any individual member. It requires the ability to share credit and share control, to compromise without compromising core values, to find common ground with people who see the world differently, who have different experiences, who come from different backgrounds, who hold different beliefs.
The collaborative leader is skilled at bringing different perspectives together, at facilitating conversations between people who might not naturally connect, at building bridges between different communities, industries, cultures, or generations. They create environments where diverse viewpoints are welcomed, where different approaches are valued, where creative tension leads to creative solutions. They understand that conflict is not necessarily bad if it is managed well, that disagreement can lead to discovery, that debate can lead to better decisions. But collaboration is not just about being nice or getting along or avoiding conflict. It requires strong relationship-building skills, the ability to establish trust quickly with people from different backgrounds, to communicate effectively across cultural and linguistic barriers, to find ways to work together even when you disagree about some things. The collaborative leader invests time in understanding other people's perspectives, motivations, constraints, and goals. They look for win-win solutions, ways for everyone to benefit, approaches that serve multiple interests simultaneously. The collaborative leader also understands the importance of creating shared vision and shared goals that unite diverse groups around common purposes. They help people see beyond their individual interests to collective interests, beyond short-term gains to long-term benefits, beyond local concerns to global implications. They create compelling narratives that help people understand why collaboration is necessary, what it can accomplish, and how.
Collaboration also requires excellent communication skills, the ability to translate between different languages, cultures, and contexts to help people understand each other, even when they come from very different worlds. The collaborative leader serves as a bridge, a translator, a facilitator, who helps different groups work together effectively. They understand that collaboration is not automatic, that it requires intention and effort and skill to make it work well. The ninth quality is innovation mindset, but not innovation for its own sake, or change for the sake of change. This is purposeful innovation. Strategic creativity, the ability to see new possibilities for serving people better, for solving problems more effectively, for creating value in ways that matter. The innovative leader questions assumptions that others take for granted, challenges status quo that others accept without question, asks why things must be done the way they have always been done when the results are not what they should be or could be. But they do not innovate randomly or recklessly. They innovate with intention and direction. They understand the difference between novelty and improvement, between change and progress, between different and better. They focus their creative energy on changes that will make a real difference in people's lives, that will solve real problems, that will create real value. They innovate to serve, not to impress. They create to help, not to show off. They change to improve, not to disrupt for the sake of disruption.
Innovation requires courage because new ideas are often met with resistance, skepticism, or fear. People are comfortable with familiar ways of doing things, even when those ways are not working well, even when better ways are available. even when change would benefit everyone. The innovative leader must be able to communicate the vision for change clearly, to help people see why the risk of change is worth taking, to guide them through the uncertainty that comes with doing things differently. They must be able to sell the benefits of innovation, address the fears that come with change, and provide support during the transition from old ways to new ways. They understand that innovation is not a destination, but a journey. Not a single breakthrough, but a continuous process of improvement and adaptation. Not an event, but a culture. They create environments where innovation can flourish, where people feel safe to experiment, where failure is seen as learning rather than punishment, where creativity is encouraged and rewarded. They provide resources for innovation, time for experimentation, support for risk-taking. The innovative leader also understands that innovation often comes from combining existing ideas in new ways, rather than creating something completely new from nothing. They encourage cross-pollination of ideas between different departments, industries, or fields. They look for patterns and connections that others might miss. They bring together people with different expertise, different experiences, different perspectives to see what new ideas emerge from their interaction.
But innovation must be balanced with execution. The innovative leader does not just generate ideas, but implements them, does not just envision possibilities, but makes them real, does not just imagine solutions, but builds them. They understand that an idea without implementation is just a dream, that innovation without execution is just creativity, that vision without execution is just wishful thinking. The innovative leader also helps others become more innovative, more creative, more willing to try new things. They model innovative thinking and encourage it in others. They ask questions that stimulate creative thinking. They create processes that generate new ideas. They celebrate innovation when it succeeds and learn from it when it fails. They make innovation part of the culture, part of the expectation, part of the way business is done. The 10th quality is perhaps the most crucial for our planet's future and our children's inheritance: sustainability thinking. The understanding that short-term gains at the expense of long-term health are not gains at all, but debts that someone else will have to pay, burdens that future generations will have to bear, problems that will eventually come back to haunt us. The sustainable leader understands that we do not own the earth, but are stewards of it, that we do not inherit it from our ancestors, but borrow it from our children, that our decisions today will affect people who are not yet born, places we will never see, possibilities we cannot fully imagine.
Sustainability thinking requires a long-term perspective in a world obsessed with quarterly results, immediate gratification, and short-term profits. It requires the courage to make decisions that might be less profitable in the short term, but more beneficial in the long term. That might be more expensive today, but less costly tomorrow. That might be harder now, but easier later. It requires the wisdom to understand that true success is measured not just by what we achieve, but by what we leave behind. Not just by what we take, but by what we give. Not just by what we build, but by what we preserve. The sustainable leader builds regenerative systems, creates solutions that get better over time rather than worse, designs processes that strengthen rather than deplete the resources they use. They think in terms of cycles rather than lines, understanding that waste from one process can become input for another, that ending points can become starting points, that problems can become solutions if approached creatively. They look for ways to do more with less, to create greater value with smaller environmental impact, to serve more people while using fewer resources. But sustainability is not just about environmental issues, though those are critically important. It is also about social sustainability, building organizations and communities that can thrive over time, that can weather challenges and adapt to changes while maintaining their core identity and values. It is about economic sustainability, creating business models that generate profit while also generating social and environmental benefits. that serve shareholders while also serving stakeholders, that create wealth while also creating value.
The sustainable leader thinks about the full life cycle of their decisions, the long-term consequences of their actions, the ripple effects of their choices. They consider not just immediate results, but ultimate outcomes, not just direct effects, but indirect impacts, not just intended consequences, but unintended ones. They ask questions like, what happens after what happens? Who else is affected by this decision? What are the long-term implications? How does this serve the greater good? What kind of world are we creating? Sustainability thinking also requires systems thinking, the ability to see connections between different parts of complex systems, to understand how changes in one area affect other areas, to recognize that everything is connected to everything else. The sustainable leader sees the big picture while attending to details, understands context while managing content, thinks globally while acting locally.